Time passed and we weren't too hungry and we had dinner rice roll at 5 p.m. Then we split up. Things were getting a little spooky here, and that's where we ended off. This is Roboprinny, and off we go into the next wonderful episode of the Raging Loop. Raging Loop. Let's go. Takumi-san had yet to return. Go back already. I appreciate the help, but this is my job. Just go back. Crap, the bluff from yesterday was too strong. I had absolutely no intention of laying a hand on a widow with teenage sons, but Yoshisugu-kun was acting like a real knight protecting a princess.
この子もこう言ってるから。昨日からよくやってくれているし、今日は
I will do just that then. Befall in a field.
あんたはまた何を失礼なことを。
See you tomorrow.
ええ、また明日。
See ya. See ya, huh? That made it seem like he didn't see me as a complete enemy. I had no idea what he was thinking, what they had talked about back there. I was a bit curious. I'd probably have to ask Yasunaga-kun to find out. As I walked to my hut through the dark mist, I ran into the students.
あ、ハッサンだ。今日は早いぞ。早く済ませて帰ろうよ。
We were waiting for you. Hope it's not a bother. What do you mean? I couldn't sense anyone hiding in the dense mist, but they didn't seem like there was no one there. The only one out of the three I could trust was Yasunaga-kun. I hope he wasn't about to reveal something dangerous. I wanted to thank you. Thank? Yes, you stole up Yoshitsugu yesterday, didn't you? He told us. Ha 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 ha, whatever do you mean? Though I can't say I approve of your methods. He even mentioned that. Yes. Oh, can I go hit my head on that rock and die? It's fine. He said it helped him cool off.
何言ったのよ、一体。スケベの気配がするぞ。
Anyways, if he knew that much, I didn't have to hide it. Mochi held Haru-chan back while Yasunaka-kun and I continued talking. Sorry about that. I needed something to provoke him, and it was the only idea that came to mind. I see. He's single-minded, which is good, but he doesn't seem to have a clear position in or outside the feast. Yes, that's why I wanted to tell him to actually use his head, but Mom... What did she say? Just something ominous or boring, but that also helps Yoshitsugu cool off. It didn't seem like he'd get any more detailed. I see. So what you three were talking about. Yes, please don't suspect us.
そうよ。兄ちゃんが悪いことなんてするわけがないじゃない。むしろあなたの方が怪しいんだからね。まあ、ハッサンから見たら、僕もハルちゃんも怪しいと思うよ。
Anyways, that's it. Also, sorry for being so helpless. What a grim face. It was the same as the one he made his efforts to prevent Tei-san and Meimeya-san from being lynched targets out to be in vain. Don't be. I'm the adult here, so that's my line.
まあ、今現在、無力でないのは、ハルちゃんのじっちゃんくらいだろう。仕方ないさ。霧の中じゃ、人は無力なんだ。
You said something normal for once.
やっすんとハルちゃんの前だから自重だ。
I'm holding myself back because Yasan and Haru-chan are here. That made sense. We'll be going back then. Be
明
careful.
日死んでたら骨は拾うぞ。
We'll bury you if you're dead tomorrow. That's pretty morbid. I sent them off with a simple goodbye. One of them refused
ハ
to
ルち
leave.
ゃん、もうやったとは何？
What? I wondered what she meant by that, but then I already tried it. Did she mean the thing I told Yashitsugu-kun last night? What are you talking about? Yasunaga-kun didn't know, but Yoshitsugu-kun not mention that part? Oh, were you listening in on us yesterday? That would explain everything. Rikako-san had directly exactly that. And it wouldn't have surprised me if Haru-chan had done the
昨
same.
日は3人でとっとと戻ったよ。その後一人でなんか聞きに行ったの？
They had no idea what she was talking about. Mochi's words supported my assumption. There was no response. This talk wasn't that big of a deal, but the silence made it feel needlessly intense. Haru-chan? Did my voice contain a little too much irritation? Good at speaking up. But then all of that was blown away.
そうか、
I see.
落ちてきたか。己、幾度かやり直しておるな。
For a moment, it felt like her mouth displayed a frighteningly maniacal grin. Haru-chan. The next moment, her expression returned to the
あれ、
usual sullen
どうか
face.
した？
Let's go back, you two.
うん。
Hold on, what was that?
ハッサン、
The one who stopped me from going after the other two was Mochi.
これはね、僕らだけの秘密だ。多分宴とは全然関係ない話だから気にしないで寝るといい。
What are you talking about? Haru-chan's weird state just now?
そうだ。
She also went all weird in the middle of the feast, didn't she?
それ以上は立ち入り禁止。じゃあね、ハッサン。今夜も頑張ってね。
He also left with the bombshell. Do your best tonight. Could only mean that he knew I had a guardian. Who was I supposed to trust? Rather, who was sane here?
複雑回帰でございます。
Are you talking about yourself?
ひどい。
That was my line. I almost screamed when she popped up. What's up
昨
with
日
you?
のことがあったので心配を。物意味が多く。しかし牧島春様は。
Healed?
はい。かつて牧島春様はご両親が亡くなられ狼様に疲れたなどというものも出てまいる始末でした。
Possessed by a wolf? I've heard of possession by fox, but that's news to me. Doesn't seem
狼
unlikely
様
though.
は人に取りつきません。
Is that how it is? I'm not sure I understand.
どう言いましょう。狼様や他のお守りは偉大なる神を下ろすのは相応の儀礼にのっとるべきで、簡
That
単に
was
勝手に取りつかれるようなもの。
So, was this the work of a fox or a tanuki?
神内明神に仕えている私たちは
But didn't the wolves get betrayed and killed by the humans and other guardians? Maybe that left an
それ
opening.
は結局のところ
What do you mean?
実のところ狼様が死んでいると伝えているのは上藤吉の長者家には安水の者の方が読み人に組みしていると。
Is that true?
はい。安水の方には
What would happen if I told them?
それは普通に気分を害されるかと。
Yeah, of course they would. It wouldn't make sense for them to become murderers just because they heard something like that.
昔、ずーっと昔に、あたしが娘だった頃に、 読み意味の宴についての本当のお話をね。
Yeah, Tayson herself said it last time. Just knowing the real story wasn't enough. The knowledgeable alone didn't motivate the wolves and badgers to kill. Back then, Chimi was probably just dealing with her own problems. I'd badly misunderstood her situation. It really did seem like the wolves had a change of heart due to more than simple words. This was good. I could now see a bit more of an overall picture.
春明様、春明様、
Oh, sorry.
怖
What
い
is
顔
it?
をなさっているから。何
No, 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 no. Sorry. We were talking about Haru-chan, right? So what's up with her?
野里のお医者様は心の病だとおっしゃいました。しかし上藤吉でも安水でも狼付きだというささやきは、だから植松家が汚れ払いを行いまして。
Did you pray or chant something?
まあそのようなものです。
That made sense. The four families rolled through the local faith, so cracks in their beliefs were serious troubles for them. I didn't quite relate to the idea that some beastly possessions couldn't happen. Since they brought in Utsumatsu to deal with it, only meant they wanted to handle it with religious standpoint. In a way, that was admission that Haru-chan was an exception in their faith. The family heads had probably wanted to treat it as a problem that they had nothing to do with the religion. And if they didn't allow healing her with a change of the environment, this didn't seem all that unusual. There were stories of beastly possessions all over Japan. Mimiya's probably had tons of them in her head. It did freak me out a bit, but it happened here, all places, but I felt like I had to consider it separate from all the other strange phenomena here. By the way, did you hear anything possessed by Yomi Bito?
それもまた奇妙です。読み人は知性も人徳も牧島春様のご様子はそれとは少し違っていました。
That reminded me the last time Reikako had been declared a Yomi Bito when something went wrong with her mind. Haru-chan wasn't like that at all. Since no one could think of an explanation, they began to thinking that she was possessed by the Okami.
はい。上藤吉にも安水の伝承を話としては知っているというものを、汚れても神は神、かつあのような少々気味の悪いところから。
The prayers healed her.
はい。しまいには軽い汚れによる面倒事であったと。
I didn't get it completely, but it didn't seem like a big deal and it ended a while ago, but now it comes back.
これはね、僕らだけの秘密だ。多分宴とは全然関係ない話だから気にしないで寝るといい。
This is our secret.
子供たちは
I doubt they say anything though. If Mochi wasn't lying, then this had nothing to do with the feast. This was Fujiyoshi's problem, completely independent of the feast. However,
そうか。落ちてきたか。己、幾度かやり直しておるな。
what did she mean by Rose? I think I heard something like that in today's feast too.
落ちとは戻ってくる。特に
Then rise is not means don't come back from the dead. Rikako-san nodded. Well, that made sense. Yasumizu considered returning from Yomi to be ominous, so it served as a farewell to the dead here.
そうか。落ちてきたか。 己幾度かやり直しておるな。
I see, so you come back from the dead. You have tried again several times, have you not? How? How did she know that? I was being subjected to some weird death loop, and I was the only one aware of it. This is the one thing that I couldn't justify in merely logical murder. Had she noticed it was supposedly possessed? Was I just overthinking it? Maybe she'd been referring to something else. Was it possible that something supernatural really had possessed her and could tell the situation I was in? I didn't want to believe that, but I would keep it in mind as a possibility. However, not even Reikeko seemed to know anything about this supernatural deity. Was it completely unrelated to my situation? I couldn't afford to overthink things. However, for all I knew, Haru-chan could be the key to unraveling this strange situation. I had gotten lost in thought again, but this time Reikeko-san just silently waited until I was done. She too was wearing a profound expression in her head and lost in thought.
私たちは無知もうまいな。
Anyone would be like that in this situation.
春明様はそれ以上は踏み込んでこられないの。
What do you mean? Like I said before, I don't have any special powers.
特別な境遇もありませんか？あるいは特別な過去は？いえ。私は春明様を特別な方だと思うきっかけはわかりません。あの日、墓毛、私は夫妻子春明様のことばかりを考えております。置き場に頭を打ちつけた私を助けていただいたから、名前を呼んでいただいたから、理由は考えました。お慕いしております、夫妻子春明様。いいのです。おっしゃられずとも、私はそのようなことをそれでも
Which would
逃
be
げてください。
I can't, can I? I knew that well. I believed that I could escape last time and ended up falling into the protect anyone. I understand why everyone here is so afraid of the mist. It's because you can't escape it and it will remain until the feast comes to an end. That's why
言わ
I...
ないでください。私はあなた様からマロードのお帰りを見送るネアのはしための末裔として、そして春明様には無事に、あなた様にはここで死ぬ義理は本当はないはずです。きっといいのです。たとえ嘘があっても借りがあっても、この山があなた様に求める。だから私が逃がします。
What? That actually sounded like she knew of a way to escape this place. I wanted to ask about it. I had to even. Despite feeling that way, though. Please don't say it. I refused. I knew full well that meant for her.
ないと知ってもですか？
Am I now?
いえ。ただこんなことを続けていれば。
Rikako-san, do you have any other dark secrets? She stared at me in bewilderment. You always knew that you could help someone run away if you discarded yourself and your feelings. However, you didn't know if you could go through with that, right? You didn't know if you should throw away your duties as the Usumatsusu and save someone, or stay in Yasumizu until the end and keep being an Usumitsu. After a lot of inner conflict, you decided that letting me escape was the right thing to do. That's what you wanted to. You wanted to make me believe that it doesn't matter what happens to you as long as I'm alright. I don't like that. Man, this was fun. I'm gonna play this by my own rules. It's fun, but she was just
あの
lovable.
その
That's why I want to change the rules. How about this? If you cut it out with the unpleasant secrets, the man called Haruki Fushiyashi will trust Rekako-san. It will survive for Rekako-san Umutsu's sake, while you will survive for Haruki's sake. If we both survive, you can ask whatever you want, and I can do the same. Willing to gamble on that? Sounds way more fun, don't you think? Her face was all red, her eyes were full of tears, her shoulders were shivering.
私は愚かなので勘違いをそれはつまりその
I wasn't rude enough to force her to say it. Instead of waiting, I just embraced her. I'm not gonna abandon you and run away. That means letting go of such a tasty-looking woman. I'd be in one hell of a waste. Please survive. Well, are you taking the bet? I felt her heated breath on me. It seemed to penetrate my shirt.
ダメ
You are adorable. So much that I wanted to take her right then and there. But the rest will have to wait for
そんな
later. I'll have to ask that again when the bet's won. That's alright with you, Rekako? I tightened my embrace a little. I'm gonna get eaten by the wolves. Eventually she nodded, saying the wager.
おやすみ
You too, good night. It's a battle, I shouted. Flirting continued for a bit, and then we parted ways. With that out of the way, I had to make sure she kept things on her side this time. Now, who to choose today? The situation was completely unlike yesterday. Takumi-san was in more critical position than before. If he went out of control, the only one who could stop him was probably Konzo, and even then, someone could die. Yonosuke was, as Mochi had pointed out in the feast, a convenient dumping ground for votes. Knowing Konzo-san's influence, Mimiya-san would definitely become a candidate for hanging. It was more or less said she was an enemy now. On the other hand, she had people in important positions in completely different ways than yesterday. Mochi had good intentions and used it a lot on me. Haru-chan had a little to do with the feast, but she might have a hint or two regarding my loop phenomenon. Investigating her would completely be personal, but I had already let Tae-san die because of my selfishness. It was pretty messed up, but clearly it was the situation was a selfless act could prove fatal. Besides them, Kori-san, the old wolf guy, and Yoshitsugu were still total blanks. Whether Kori-san was a wolf or human, she'd be a real danger. If her sons died, she was a good target for the snake. Yoshitsugu-kun had a tendency to go wild, but had little influence over the feast. The old wolf guy was the same as always. I couldn't pick them this time. Come to think of it, could I investigate the same person I checked yesterday? It'd probably be pointless, but I was curious. Who did I have to go for? Oh, investigate. I wrote down the name, left it near my pillow, and went to sleep. Human. Truth of the girl. I woke up to yet another day and got the info I wanted as the snake. You could also say the wolves had let me live. Could I trust that Yasunaka-kun and Mochi were the only ones who suspected me? I could contribute to the human survival by hiding my identity as the snake and gather information about the others. However, that had me worried. Would everyone believe the snake who survived by hiding his identity and revealing himself late into the game? I was particularly worried about Konzo. He hadn't said anything completely wrong so far, but there was a tendency for anyone cast suspicion. That seemed intentional on his part, but it seemed like a mistake on me. Yasunaka-kun attempted at a resistance hadn't gone well far. Perhaps he believed that I could be one of those cards. Would I be able to act today? Weighing my options, I opened the door and saw Takumi-kun. My surprised grasp quickly became a cry of pain. Knocked backwards, I was thrown back into the... Sitting on the floor, I looked up at him. He wasn't saying a thing. His expression was stern, and his eyes seemed to be boiling with hatred. In his left hand, he held a hoe. Even that seemed like a lethal weapon when held by a man with a threatening visage. Out of control, and I was clearly in danger. He still wasn't saying anything, not because of the hesitation, but he was waiting for my reaction. He would decide what to do based on what I did. Why are you here? Still on the floor, I asked him that. 2 died yet today. His response wasn't an answer to my question, but it was an important thing nevertheless. We had death that broke the rule of 1 per day, 1 per night. Something commonplace during the previous loop. It happened again. Who? I was more or less certain that one of them was Yoshinasu-kun Orobi. The boy went wild during the first night. He tried the same this time, so I assumed that another night was all he needed to gather the resolve to go wolf hunting. Instead of answering, though, Takumi-san just took a step forward and closed the door behind him. He crouched down and looked at me in the eyes, but even that position he loomed over me. You said you voted for me to protect me yesterday. His voice was quiet, but I hear barely concealed rage in it. Explain to me in a way even I can understand. He then rested his right hand on the right. Oh, I can read his true intentions. However, he was definitely in charge here, and a wrong answer would be punished harshly. This would be a tough one. I knew this would happen. Huh? I had to consider what was on his mind. He was probably planning to beat me up, no matter how I responded. However, he did seem to leave some space for consideration in case I gave him a good answer. I now am being tested. This decision he only understood if I provided him with something unsuspected. If I could do that, I could get him to agree with me. I already planned on a response to this. It was both well-rounded and difficult to pull off. Say you were at a crossing roads. You always believed that Yasun was unified and no one here would kill anyone else. However, since you valued your words, regardless of which generation you came from, you were unable to commit to a course of action. I paused for a second. Go on. He prodded me with the hoe. It didn't hurt, but it seemed antagonizing. However, he was giving me a chance to talk. The elders, especially Taesan, believed that the feast was a paranormal phenomenon, absolute power over all within, and that death was unavoidable. The legend she recounted to us was the reason why Yasunobitsu became isolated, and even here in Fujiyoshi, it was part of its identity. Because of the story about killing the wolves in revenge, Yasumitsu was given the unfair role of being the defense against the Yomi. However, if you accept life here and looked into it from the optimistic standpoint, the story was actually something to be proud of. That's why, despite that saying that the stories that were nonsense, you couldn't just brush them off. You seem to understand me so far. On the other hand, you are better at using your head and thinking logically than most others here, so you were better at telling truth from lie. That was why you could relate to Chimi-chan and Yasunaka-kun more modern and logical ways of thinking. One had lived in the city while the others had a keen mind. However, they themselves looked at this situation differently. While one calmly thought that you couldn't just go off and murder, and the other calmly thought that you can't avoid murder. You relate to them all, and that's why you wanted to take the middle road. and that would make it impossible for you to move forward or back. As the leader of Yasumitsu and the meditator between the generations, you had to live up to their expectations. That's why you decided to assume who were the enemies of Yasumitsu and prioritized attacking them. Fortunately for you, you had a few options. One of them was the mysterious girl Meiko, Reikakoko, and the history of the prejudice against Yasumitsu, and then there was me, the guy with the unknown background. After that, there was Mimiya-san. Her identity was clear, but she was still an outsider, and Nosato-san, the village head who didn't seem to know anything because he was the second child. And of course, Yami, Aki-san, and Koriyarobi, both of whom you were close to, were the lowest on the list. You seemingly wanted to attack them based on the order because you wanted to avoid hurting those you felt sympathetic to. I couldn't call it unreasonable. It's natural to believe that the invaders are the enemies, rather than that your neighbors become murderers. You were able to carry on this way of thinking until yesterday morning. No one died until that, after all. However, that all crumbled at noon, when Yasumitsu's people prioritized killing a local mainstay over an outsider. That's why you locked yourself up. You needed time to think, to rethink your strategy, and considered how to rework your list of enemies and how to determine Yameaki's murderer. My words were cut off, and when he threw away the hoe and grabbed me by my collar. That's not true. Being shaken by his powerful fist made it hard to breathe. It wasn't violence just yet. If it isn't, you can argue with words instead of threats. That's how you usually are, right? However, you decided to create enemies for yourself. That left you the only option: oppose the ones who killed Teisan in an adventure by attacking them. She claimed to have a guardian. It was clear that Mimiya's attitude was weird, and yet the one who hanged was Teisan. That was why you thought that the wolves must band up and voted for Teisan. They had to be lurking among those who voted her into death. I'm sure that's what you were thought, and in turn I thought this. At this point, the guilt from not saving her would get to you, and you would go berserk without any regard for it yourself, perhaps the point of killing of all suspects, if it meant getting the corruption. That's why I thought about what I had to do. If I voted for Yami Aki-san, I would be your enemy, number one enemy. Meiko was young, and while Reikako voted for Yamiaki, accepted that I had nothing. If you went berserk and started killing, I would be the first on your list. That's why I couldn't vote for her. That's the reason you had another choice. It was right, though. Tei had already more votes, and I saw differently. I could use my vote for the final vote. Even so, I couldn't vote for Hasko. Why? You suspected her too, didn't you? Now? What's I supposed to do here? There was no guarantee that no one was listening. It was probably best to assume that someone was. Even if there wasn't, what was the good idea to tell him about my guardian? I didn't have much time to think about this. Grab the hoe again. I was rotten to the core. I was the type who balked at trusting others, loved blah, blah, decisions at time of hardship, help when you were in danger. If I asked people how they could be so sure about any of those, I'd be treated as cold-hearted. But trusting others meant taking risks, and the responsibility of those risks fell on not the person I put my trust in. Of course, there were some situations where I had to take risks. Reasons where I didn't know if I'd succeed. I wanted to avoid situations like that. That was obvious by viewing them as an objective level of trust, by ignoring objective suspicions and basing it on past data. Wasn't it crazier to trust others based on characters or blood ties? Those who made choices based on how long they've known someone. I'd be damned if I fell for those scams. No, I couldn't trust them. For the first time in my life, I felt that working against me. Takumi-san was probably a human. There was almost no chance he was a wolf, but I could feel my distrust nature scolding me for thinking I could trust him. There was none to zero chance his anger was all an act. It was nearly zero, but not entirely. But if this malicious trap was the cause of the risk, would be my death. I can't say. In the end, I just repeated that. My inability to trust him was probably based on an abnormal levels of caution. Takumi released his grip on me and I lost my balance and fell to the floor. I groaned in pain as I hit my backside and upsaw. I see. Takumi holding the hoe aloft. Then fine, die. He swung it down. Maybe it's fortunate that this step had taught me a lesson. Distrust was not a perfect defense, especially when faced with great physical danger. I learned that at the cost of my life. More importantly, perhaps it would be best to gain some type of proof ahead of time that I could trust him. Bad ending number 15. I wrote down the name left near my pillow and went to sleep. Takumi-san was human. Truth of the young leader has already... Okay. I woke up to yet another day and got the info I wrote. As a snake, you can say the wolves had me let me live. Could I trust that Yasunaga-kun and Mochi were the only ones who suspected me? I could contribute to the human survival by hiding my identity as the snake. However, that had me worried. Would everyone believe the snake who survives by hiding his identity reveal himself late in the game? My surprise grasp quickly became a cry of pain knock where I was thrown back into the hut. Okay, so is this the same as last time? I think it is. I'll trust him. My decision wasn't due to trusting him personally. I did it solely because I knew he wasn't a wolf. I am the snake. Still, that was enough info to allow me to reveal it to him. That's why I knew he was right. He was a fake right from the start. His grasp relaxed for a second, but then, why didn't you say it? If you revealed yourself to Bacha, I wouldn't have. It's because I understood that the wolves wanted to know who the snake was, even if it meant sacrificing one of their own. What do you mean? Yesterday, I said that to make an active effort to win, the wolves had to pretend to have guardians. But by that means, I meant the wolves as a group. No matter how good of an actor you are, by acting like you have a guardian, you'll be suspected and put in danger. As a result, the faker would eventually be hung, but it would have brought some time for the remaining wolves. However, pretending to have a guardian when no one has died was way too risky. The real one was still alive after all. That meant the wolves could have been planning one thing, to draw out the real snake and kill them. There was also the possibility that she was a Bazir, but that would have only made it more confusing. I did nothing to stop. I won't deny that. However, I thought it was necessary for me to survive and get back to the wolves. I could not have voted for Mimiya-san. Either it was to keep the wolves from realizing that I actually knew exactly what was going on. That's why instead of using my vote on them, I used it to send you a message. It was a pretty bad plan, if I say so myself. I had no idea if you would understand. But the result is clear. You came to me and gave me a chance to explain myself. This chance was necessary for me. What do you mean? Can you let me go? You did as I asked. We can avenge Tei-san by fixing the majority and killing all the wolves. However, for that, I need you to trust me. I already trust you. After all, I used the snake's power to confirm that you are human. Can you trust me? This was very one-sided. However, it was in line with his desire. His conflict between three things: sympathy for me as an unfortunate outsider, the unfairness of the final vote, and my suggestion. This is especially hard for him because he wanted to be impartial. I can't decide that so suddenly. I understand. But I kind of believe that you are the snake. Are you sure that's a good idea? The feast's all about whether you believe or not believe, right? You had a point. Also, your assumption is right. Which one? I was thinking of killing you yesterday. Whoa. If I had come here in the state I was yesterday, I probably killed you before listening to anything you had to say. But I couldn't go through with it, probably because I wanted to know what you meant. So I worked up some word magic there, huh? But that has nothing to do with whether I trust you or not. I'll think about your suggestion after you tell me more. That's good enough for me. You said 2 people died. Oh, I was just thinking of telling you. Come with me. We gotta find the old man. The ones who died today, were Haru and Hisako Mamiya. When Tamaki told me that, I was more confused than shocked. Why? Why them of all people? I couldn't spend a lot of time thinking. Takumi predicted that Konzo would go on a frenzy he saw Haru-chan. That reminded me of the time he ran up to her when she was acting weird. Mochi had told me that his love for his grandpa was a lot, and that was undoubtedly true. Tamaki had walked around Yasumizu before coming to me. It would have been fine if they just missed each other, but Konzo always woke up and walked around before anybody else, so he must have already seen Haru. Considering the situation, I couldn't help but feel that something bad was happening. He's got a rifle. Even Takumi-san, who almost killed me himself, deemed him a huge threat. At the plaza, we met Chime. Her eyes were all red. You saw the old man?
私、匠兄ちゃんが春明さん同行する。
We'll talk about that later. How his room is open, right? Let's stick together and search for him.
まだ起きてないかも。
Then wake him up and let's gather at the dorm. Oh, okay.
春明さん、大丈夫だ。
What?
その。
I won't say I didn't touch him, but I didn't do anything to him. Let's go. His words in large frame made it feel like his unusual strength and confidence had returned. Rikeko-san, Meiko, Kori-san, and Yoshitsugu-kun, everyone from the nearby homes, were still with us. And with post-recording, I will show this part again. I went a little bit past my time for the 1 hour mark. So this is going to be a 2-parter, but I'll see you guys in the next one. Alright, Roboprinny out.